Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. In previous videos, we've talked quite a lot about the management style of Major Partagaz and how the ISB board is a relatively rare institution when compared to the wider Imperial machine. Here at the ISB board, you can actually have open discussions. You can have an exchange of ideas between ISB supervisors as they try to solve the Empire's many problems. In the Empire, power is everything, and the competition for it is extremely ruthless, especially because it's all just controlled by one individual at the top, Emperor Palpatine, and he releases power in little spurts and globs. Think of Immortan Joe standing at the top of his fortress, opening up the waters for the wretched and damned down below, trying to catch liquid in little pots and pans. The water is a great visual stand-in for the concept of power. Everyone needs water to survive, and so if you have water, you have power. But in order to maintain power and control over this water, Immortan Joe must fight off other factions and bandits that exist in the wasteland, and since he can't be everywhere at the same time, he has to delegate his responsibilities. In a normal functioning society where power is shared responsibly between various branches of government, delegating powers usually means giving it to an institution or a committee or some kind of organization that is full of professionals whose only job is to focus on those factors. They're not usually political or distracted by the politics that happen at the executive branch. They're just there to do that one specific job. What makes these professional organizations work is the fact that there are many horizontal checks and balances, roles and responsibilities that each individual in these roles have. These horizontal checks are generally hated by dictators and tyrants because they're not under their control. They're not under the control of the executive branch. For instance, in the United States, the executive branch cannot deploy the U.S. military to enforce domestic law unless they have congressional approval or if the Insurrection Act is being declared. The Insurrection Act can only be declared if there are open riots and rebellion in the country or if a state governor requests for the federal military to step in. This makes sure that a very extreme act like deploying American soldiers to control other Americans can only happen when several parties in government agree it's necessary. And that's probably not going to happen because a lot of representatives and senators who make up Congress are going to have to explain to their constituents why they did something so unpopular. At the same time, a governor also has to explain to its constituents why he called the military to crack down on them. Another very unpopular thing to do. And this is how checks and balances work. You don't let the decision or the buck stop at just one individual. There's a committee who decides what the right course of action should be. But in a system like the Empire, or like Immortan Joe's cult, or honestly in any criminal organization, the leaders choose trusted individuals to do their bidding instead of build systems or institutions. Immortan Joe can rely on Major Kalashnikov to oversee the bullet farm, not only because he knows what he's doing, but because he and Joe go way back when they both served in the Australian Armed Services. For those of you not familiar, Australia is a fictional country made up by NASA. And this is why Emperor Palpatine gives the ISB almost free reign to do whatever they want in the Empire in pursuit of the growing rebellion. In a system like the Empire's, checks and balances, honesty and transparency are not really important. In some way, being competent is less important than just being loyal, which is why the Empire is a complete mess. Everyone is either ruthlessly pursuing power and resources so that they can strengthen their own position like Krennic, or they're just keeping their heads down as much as they can in order to avoid their superiors as much as possible, like Chief Hines. This is what makes the Imperial Security Bureau kind of weird. There still clearly is a heavy underlying Imperial culture going on at the ISB. The individual supervisors working at the Bureau all selfishly guard the sectors they are responsible for overseeing. There is very little cross-sector cooperation, it seems, between supervisors, which is really an oversight, like what happens if you're pursuing a galaxy-wide operation like Luthen's. It seems like there were many roadblocks initially to cooperation between individual supervisors, and that really allowed Luthen to do whatever he wanted early on. In your typical Imperial organization, you never see anything like this. There's no discussion, no debate, and because any kind of flaw that's brought up about an organization can hurt the leader usually suppresses it. But when Dedramiro criticized Partagaz by how he organized the galaxy into different sectors for each ISB supervisor, instead of getting angry or upset at Dedra, Partagaz acknowledges that what she says might be valuable and that he'll think about it. You rarely ever see this kind of behavior from Imperial leadership. I mean, you might see that from Thrawn, but it's very rare. This might be because Major Partagaz, like Thrawn, is only a few steps removed from the top. I mean, who else is above him, really? Wolf Yularen, and then it's Palpatine. At the highest levels of the Imperial command structure, you do have competent individuals like him. Even Director Krennic, as chaotic as he is, was a terrific slave driver. He got projects over the line no matter how many people he killed. And so, in a dictator's inner circle, you might find some competency because when you're just managing 30 people, it's doable. But if you're trying to micromanage an entire galaxy, that's when things begin to fall apart. And if we take a look at Major Partagaz's Supervisor Board, well, most of these individuals are kind of incompetent. Only a few of these supervisors have any merit at all, and they're typically the younger individuals in the group. Inspector Blevin, despite being a by-the-books type of Imperial, is actually pretty good at his job. I actually think his beef with Dedra wasn't just over office politics, but a sincere belief that Dedra was dangerous and crossing the line. His inability to think outside the box is what made him such a good bureaucrat.
You have 2 sectors to supervise. Blevin is handling 6. He does, I will admit, hew to the traditional viewpoint of this office and its staffing. He is, I'm sure, a challenge to work with. His quarterly reports, however, are in, and yours are not, and here we are spending your valuable time with this issue.
And you really need Blevins to run these types of organizations. Like, he's important. And I wouldn't be surprised if before Dedra came, Blevin was one of Partagaz's rising stars. But once the Aldhani raid happened and Major Partagaz realized what Dedra was, an obsessed huntress with a deeply analytical mind, he immediately started putting more resources behind her and tries to mentor her. Partagaz tries to do the best he can with what's given to him. But the people standing in this room with him, all these supervisors, are the product of an Imperial system that destroys innovation, competence, and replaces it all with feigned loyalty for the Empire. The ironic thing is, the people you actually want in your intelligence service, they probably could never make it through the Imperial Academy system. It just wouldn't work for them. You know, the smart kid who stuck out too much in class, that was bullied or just exploited by some dumber but more malicious bully. I mean, heck, that almost happened to Thrawn, but luckily the blue man knew how to throw some hands. I imagine that's who Partagaz was as well, a smart individual, a survivor who managed to somehow climb up this crazy system. But when decent and competent people like Partagaz reach leadership positions, they can actually create little bubbles in the chaos where real work actually is done. But even then, Partagaz can only work with what he's given, and if we take a quick look around the room, there's just not a lot of brain activity or sparks of consciousness going on. Speaking of a lack of consciousness, we have Supervisor Lagret, or No Regret Lagret, because there's a certain quality to this man, a lack of introspection of the past, also of the future, also of present day. No regrets, all day. The first time we see Lagret is the first time we see the ISB board. Major Partagaz is receiving an update from Lagret about Arvala 6.
My staff is awaiting an assessment from Arvala 6's ministerial director.
Because they've done such an excellent job so far,
Lagret unfortunately has no idea what's going on. Oftentimes when we see him, there is confusion on his face. This is despite the fact that he is a senior member of the ISB Supervisor Board. See the 4 squares on his chest? That ranks him as a chief supervisor. Yet for some reason, Lagret is mostly respected by his peers. He's not ostracized or isolated. As a matter of fact, he and Partagaz seem to have a cordial and professional relationship? Friendship? He's also placed in charge of larger operations of perhaps lesser importance, but there's no denying that he commands respect. And that's because Lagret is very much the perfect cog for the machine. Whereas Partagaz, Dedra, Cyril are all individualistic, independent-minded, and outside-the-box thinkers, Lagret can't help but just let the Empire think and act for him. This is why he's trusted by everyone around him. The system doesn't reject him because he is very much the embodiment of what an Imperial should be, thoughtless and almost robotic in nature. For instance, shortly before Mon Mothma gives her speech on Gorman in the Imperial Senate, Supervisor Lagret is called into the ISB Command Center by an analyst who noticed that the bugs planted in Mon Mothma's office were removed. This lower-ranking ISB officer rightfully guesses that Mon Mothma is about to carry out some type of political action against the Empire.
There are rumors that prominent senators may try to challenge the Imperial narrative on Gorman.
I've just been told the morning agenda is set. The chair has no intention of letting any of them take the floor.
It's hilarious how rigid Lagret is, how unwilling he is to entertain that people could be lying in the Senate. Lagret just completely believes that Bail Organa will do as he says. And the more you look at this conversation, the worse it gets.
Senator Mothma, we have a field agent with her.
Yes, I know, her driver.
He's been calling in. Apparently she's not left the Senate tonight.
Is that unusual?
We were told to pay particular attention to the Senate for the next few days, given the situation in Gorman.
Do we have a consul?
The guy clearly doesn't even want to be here. You know, if Dedra were in his shoes in that scene, she'd probably already have sent a team to see what's happening to the senator. She's young, she's hungry, and she's obsessed. I think for Lagret, his lack of action, his calibrated enthusiasm are a result of not just his personality, but like the experiences he's gone through in the Empire. You know, first, a lot of things are spiraling out of control, specifically in the time period that Andor takes place. I'm sure before Aldhani happened, things were not nearly as chaotic or difficult for the ISB, but now with the agency being thrust into the center of Emperor Palpatine's anti-dissidence campaign, they are quite visible and exposed. Lagret might seem dumb, he might seem unenthused, but he has survived for quite some time in one of the most ruthless organizations in the Empire. I would not underestimate him completely. You know, over time, he's probably seen what happens to individuals who are a bit too ambitious or a bit too reckless. He knows better than to make the mistakes that Dedra does. Like an old soldier, Lagret knows to never volunteer for things, never offer ideas, or do too much where he'll get noticed. Lagret is completely checked out, in my opinion, and he's just trying to maintain his job and survive for as long as he can. In a lot of ways, Lagret is probably one of the most relatable characters in this entire show. Far more relatable than Cassian or Luthen or any of the other badasses that go out like lions. Lagret is a coward. He is obedient. He has quieted his mind, removed his individualism to be a cog in this larger machine. The only thing he really cares about is preserving the system and that status quo. He's so bland, he's so lacking of character and initiative that why kill him at all, right? He's basically nothing. The only time he ever voluntarily speaks is when he's trying to protect the system that he belongs to, like when Dedra kind of attacks how Partagaz structures the ISB.
I'd like to know if anyone here believes the rebellion plans its actions around the artificially constructed boundaries of our sectors.
Major Partagaz created those sectors.
Or when Mon Mothma goes on air in the Senate and starts attacking the Empire. He kind of goes crazy there.
I don't care if you have to cut power to the whole chamber. Get her off the air!
There's a scene at the end of the show where Major Partagaz finally realizes that he's, run out of time. His ISB has failed to prevent the secrets of the Death Star program from spreading to the rebellion. And so he begins to listen to Nemik's manifesto.
Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear.
I'm assuming you've heard it before.
Bits and pieces.
While Major Partagaz is having this very devastating moment where he realizes he's lost, Lagret is kind of not there still.
Just keeps spreading, doesn't it?
It's been hard to contain.
Now you begin to see a little more. It's not that Lagret's not there mentally. It's almost like he's at a loss of words.
Who do you think it is?
I'm afraid they're waiting for you, sir. I told them I'd bring you down.
Now in this last scene, take a close look at Lagret's face. I'm sorry if it's a little blurry, but see if you can make out his expression.
May I have a moment to collect my thoughts?
There's actually concern on his face. Like, we're not really sure how long Lagret has worked with Major Partagaz. It could be years. They could have been working together since Republic time. They're both old enough. Yet at the very end, there's no goodbyes, no hugs, no thank you for mentoring me, no thank you for protecting me from your bosses. Partagaz did stick his neck out to protect Dedra, and the fact that Lagret is still here probably means he stuck his neck out to protect him as well. The only thing Lagret is courageous enough to give Partagaz is a moment of privacy so that he can shoot himself in his face. This video isn't necessarily just about Lagret. As a character, we really don't get to know him very well, and that's kind of the point. When we talk about the banality of evil, about how tyrannical systems take away everything from us, this is what I mean. In a best case scenario, under Imperial rule, you are Lagret, so full of fear and desperate to survive that even as your world falls apart around you, there's really nothing you can do but look stoic and continue keeping your head down in the hopes that the next neck the axe comes down on isn't yours. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.